wanted to take a second to talk about how to remove the rear shock on a Vision. I've never done it before, but I figured it out on my own. It's really not that big of a deal. Let's take a look at that. I got the bike jacked up with the rear tire off. And no weight on the rear swing arm. In fact, there's a swing arm with a belt wrapped around it right there. I already got the suspension link out, checking the bolts and stuff like that for wear, that kind of stuff. But if you take a close look at it, get it in the light here. See how it's kind of getting wore a little bit right here. This is a 10.9 grade bolt, metric bolt, so it's still a stout bolt. But anyway, I went to the store and got another 10.9 bolt to replace it, just in case. Since it is a suspension component, I don't want to have this thing failing on me. So anyway, I'm kind of glad I took the time to take that all apart and do some maintenance on it. I think you guys ought to do the same thing. But if I wanted to take, there's the shock on that side, but if I want to take that bolt out, it's hard to see, but the framework, the cast frame, is in the way to be able to shove this bolt out that way. You try to pivot this arm down as far as you can, and the bolt still can't get by that cast iron frame there. I think you have to pull this pin out, and it's really not that hard to do. These bolts here are what hold the pin in place. So I removed this back one, and then right there, as you see, imagine the pin going straight through here, and it comes out. There's an access hole right there. So what I do is I take like a long Allen wrench or screwdriver or something like that, and I push that in there. I don't know if I can actually get in there to see the pin. Yeah, I guess you can. There's the pin right there. So I reach through that hole to push that pin back. And of course, I've already removed this access panel here from underneath the fender well. So I got that. So that pin, when you push it back, it'll start pulling out, coming out here. You can grab it, and you might have to lift this arm up and help kind of support it a little bit, get some tension off of it. So you might have to lift up on the tension of this thing a little bit, just to get the weight off of it. Then you can pull the shaft out far enough where that will drop down. But it's still not enough to get this bolt out. We have to go underneath the bike to get that done. Let's go take a look at that. So now we're underneath the bike, and there's the pin. Like I said, we take that bolt out from the top side, and that pin will push out this way. And you can remove that pin, and that'll drop the link down a little bit, but it's still not enough. We're gonna have to get this shock. I already undid the bolt here. We have to undo this bolt, and then once that link is out, you can move the shock over. But I think this is your tip over sensor here. You're gonna have to remove the tip over sensor, I believe. I think that's what it's called. But I know you have to remove it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get the shock off without removing it. There's two 8mm nuts on top of it. Really can't get a good look at it here. Two 8mm nuts. So you just take those two nuts off. It's sitting on studs, and then you can pull this out of the way. Make sure you don't have your key on. I think if this is turns a certain angle with the key on, it throws a code to the computer that says you've tipped your bike over, like in a crash or something like that. I think that's what this does. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. Anyway, in order to get that, trying to get that bolt out, you have to remove this, and that will allow the shock. You can pull the shock off to the side enough. You'll be able to lift this up, the shock up and out of the way enough to get this arm to clear inside of that, and then this whole arm will be in the center. Then you'll slide it over, drop it in the center, and then that will drop the whole thing down enough to where that bolt will come out. So what I've done is I took that screw out that holds the pivot shaft in. So now when I pull that pivot shaft out, of the bearing that's in this rocker arm. Now I can drop that rocker arm down enough to where I can take that bearing or take that bolt out, but I'm not able to. Let me get this arm out here. But I'm still not able to get that bolt out. It's in here. So undo this here, and just move this out of the way, and then you can move the shock over and lift it up enough to get it over the top of this bracket to where these brackets will go and sit here in the middle, and then the shock will drop down farther. Right now it's sitting on top of this. I didn't realize you can't see it, but let's see if I get some light in there. It's sitting in, it's limited by how far it could travel because of the shape of the swing arm. So if we get this over the top of that swing arm, just drop and just sit here in the middle. So you can get this bracket to just drop down here in the middle. Then this shock will drop down far enough to where you can get that bolt out. But you have to take this sensor off first in order to move it over far enough to get it up past everything that's up inside of here and lift that up out of the way. So right now I am this over. I'm putting in a brand new bolt here because that other bolt was wore out quite a bit. I didn't like how loose that thing, or how worn out that thing was getting. So I'll put this bolt in here. Alright. Then I can proceed to lift this up far enough to get, so lift this up far enough where you can get that shaft back through that bearing. And then I'll go ahead and put that bolt in from the top side here. That'll be in place where it needs to be. Then I'll put the bolt in that the bottom of the shock. And then I'll bring this down, this arm down here. Get the bolt in that there, and then my swing arm will be ready to rock and roll again. So now that I got that shaft all the way in there, I can go ahead and put this bolt in. I'll get that tightened up. Then I can take the time to put the nut on that one, and then put the nut on that one. That's all I need to do from the top side. And then we're done, and then I'll go to the bottom side and finish it up.